Now, the Fed can refinance itself. It can refinance itself very, very simply. And it does that by lending money to the federal government, and the federal government applying those funds back onto the Fed's balance sheet, not in the form of a deposit, but in the form of equity. So, problem solved. But you don't want to have to do this in the middle of a crisis. It's really not the best thing to do. The problem is far more acute elsewhere, and I particularly refer to the position of the ECB and the Bank of Japan. We have seen both the euro and the yen collapse in value against the dollar in recent weeks, and there are very good reasons for this. If we look at the yen, the Bank of Japan has tried to draw a line on rising yields, insisting that the yield on the 10-year JGB must not rise above 0.25%. 0.25%! And we've got raging inflation around the world, raging inflation measured by CPI. They are clearly drawing a line in the sand, which means that they will sacrifice their currency. And this is why the yen has been collapsing. Furthermore, the Japanese banks are very highly leveraged. The asset to equity ratio is absolutely staggering. I mean, I've got the figures here because I've been writing about this for an article to be published tomorrow. Mitsuhi, asset to equity ratio, 62 times. Can you believe that? So what happens with rising interest rates? Well, obviously, their balance sheets get decimated because on a mark-to-market basis, then their assets are going down insofar as they are invested in bonds. Now, the point worth making is that not just the Japanese G-SIBs, but everyone else's G-SIBs are primarily invested not in loans to industry, but in financial assets and loans to other people who use the credit to buy financial assets. So you've got this huge, great pyramid, and the collapse is mainly in the financial markets, with financial assets going down the tubes. And we've seen how this is beginning today. So when you look at asset to equity ratios of 60 times, just think how little in terms of non-performing loans and how little in terms of falling asset values will wipe that out. You've got it. And the central bank, the Bank of Japan, has been doing QE since the year 2000. It is now heavily underwater on any valuation of JGBs, and also it's got a substantial amount or a significant amount of ETFs holding equities, so it's exposed to a falling equity market. And I estimate that as of last Friday, it is likely that the deficit on its balance sheet exceeds its equity by some 140,000 times. I mean, this is just staggering. It is absolutely impossible. Now, again, the Japanese central bank can recapitalize itself by the means I've just suggested. But again, it better get a move on, because if it's going to be in a position to backstop the Japanese banking system, then it needs that money now. It needs that capital now. And it doesn't want to see any further rise in bond yields. That's what it's trying. That's why it drew the line in the sand at 0.25. Originally, it was at 0. So this is the Japanese central bank is in a very, very serious problem. Now we turn to the ECB. I looked at the ratios of the banks there. Societe Generale, would you believe 76 times assets to equity ratio? Groupe Crédit Agricole, 75 times. Deutsche Bank, 69 times. After that, we get into sort of slightly more or slightly less surreal territory, let me put it that way. We're looking at BNP Paribas, 46. Unicredit, which is the big Italian bank, 44. Santander, the Spanish bank, 36. Ingroup, which is a relatively conservative business, 26 times. These are very serious issues. And they have a difficulty recapitalizing themselves as individual banks, which they can do. They could do the same situation, if you like, as the central banks. But the problem is that all these banks are at price-to-book ratios which are well under 1. I mean, if you look at SocGen, that's a discount of 30% to to book value. And Group Crédit Agricole is that's actually Group Credit that's 80% discount. That's even worse. I mean, these figures. How do you raise money in these circumstances?
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
I have bad news for you. If you're not rich by now, you're screwed. And if you're in debt, you're even double screwed. How so, you might wonder? Well, the sad truth is that you're working your whole life to make someone else rich. The mega corporations, the banks, the politicians, everyone is getting richer. They get your money. And what is even worse, they get your time, they get your life. You are not even in a rat race, you're in a financial prison. But what could a solution for you look like? Honestly, I don't know, but I know what a solution for me would look like. It's very simple. I use whatever money I have and I multiply it with 1,000. This could make my life much easier and probably yours as well. If you have $1,000 available and multiply this with 1,000, I believe that this could solve some financial issue for the one or the other. Of course, if you're ugly, you would have to multiply it with much more than 1,000. My name is Alasdair, and this is what I decided to do. I decided to 1000x my money. This is not a joke. I know what you may be thinking. What is this guy talking about? How should this work? This is not possible. Well, I made a detailed video where I laid out my plan. And some clever folks might even want to look at this plan and copy it and do exactly what I do. This is just a little hint on the side. You have two options. You leave, you forget what you have seen. You do whatever you're doing and you hope that somehow you get some other results. Good luck with that. Or you click the link below the video. You enter your email address because I'm not showing this to everybody. You at least watch my video on how I plan to 1000x my money. The choice is yours. Make the right choice. Join me. See what a different future you could have. See at least how I intend, how I plan to do the 1000x. So click on the link below, enter your email address, and I see you on the other side. Your Alasdair.